Hello, and welcome to the first ever live stream for Magic Legends, the free-to-play online action RPG with modern MMO elements. I'm Winter Mullenix, Senior Community Manager for Cryptic Studios, and with me today,
Steve Ricosa, Executive Producer of Magic Legends.
Yes, and today we are going to show you our PAX floor demo that we will be showing from 10 to 6 p.m. Thursday through Sunday out in Boston. So if you're there, come by, play with us. And let's see, do you want to just hop right into it?
Sure. So we're going to be playing, as Winter said, the show floor demo. We're going to be having 2 classes available to play on the show floor, and you'll be playing through kind of 1/3 of a mission, and you'll be able to kind of come through and play it again as the other class. You can kind of try out the 2 classes that we'll have available.
Okay, so let's go ahead and switch over. We're going to start with the Geomancer. Can you tell us a little more about the Geomancer?
Sure. So we've got the Geomancer and the Mind Mage, and the Geomancer is red. And red's all about chaos, the fire. She's a melee class, but I think we'll get more into it when Jared, the man behind the glass, starts playing. So we're starting up now, kind of, again, 2/3 of the way through a mission, and he's going to start using some of his abilities, is what we're calling them. So for melee, he's playing on the controller right now, pulling his right trigger, and he's punching a bunch of guys, a bunch of zombies. And then every class has a secondary ability, so you hit your bumper and you get that big old explosion. And then classes have a utility ability, and for the Geomancer, it's dash. It's called Furious Leap, and it makes that big giant explosion after it lands. It's pretty cool, and so you'll have some spot in the demo to kind of warm up and figure out how to use your abilities throughout the rest of the demo. And then you can see off to the side there, you've got your spells, and we'll get the part. We'll start showing off spells here in just a second.
Panoff said hello. Well, hello, Panoff.
Get back to work.
So the 3 summons that the Geomancer has for the demo are the Earth Elemental, the Emberlings, and the Flame Tongue Kavu.
That is correct.
As you see them, could you tell the audience a little more about them?
Absolutely. When they pop up, I'll definitely talk about them. We constructed the deck for the Geomancer with only 3 summons intentionally because the class is very aggressive and likes to use a lot of sorceries and do a lot of damage. So we kept it creature light so that way we could have more exciting attacks. So you can see he's using Molten Shell right now. He's using Pyroclasm, so Molten Shell is kind of bursting off you and gives you some temp health. Pyroclasm is just an awesome fiery explosion.
I just love how explosive and aggressive she feels.
Super aggro. You definitely want to get in there. She's more like a skirmisher. You want to do a ton of damage. You want to jump out with your Furious Leap, maybe leave something behind. You've got your Earth Elemental in this particular build. That would be something like your tank. Holds a fair amount of aggro. Keep enemies off you so that way you can be casting your summons. Your Emberlings, they kind of stay at range. They shoot, and if they get destroyed, they explode in place. And then the Flame Tongue Kavu's out, so he's got his whole retinue of summons available. When you summon the Flame Tongue Kavu and there are enemies around, it immediately does a flame attack on an enemy that it finds. So you kind of get the similar vibe that you get off of the card.
It does my heart good to know you're here to help. Josu Vest.
I remember the first time I saw the Flame Tongue Kavu, I was just like astounded at the animations and everything. It was like seeing the card come to life.
It's super cool. It's super cool, especially when you get it in battle and you can see that kind of big flame breath. Again, seeing the world of Magic come to life is really exciting. All right, so he's moving along. We kind of saw a little bit of 2-stage targeting. If you use that A button and hold it down, and so he can kind of put, as long as within range and where it's allowed to be, a target. And so we summoned an Earth Elemental that aggroes everything and then explodes. It's called Elemental Shatter. It's one of my favorites. It's a very cool spell. As he's working through this area, it's another great one. Char. It's like we call it internally like a double-barreled shotgun. You fire a very short range flame burst in front of you, and then it knocks you back. And so we found ways of using that defensively, where there's a bunch of guys and you use it, and now you're out of the group. But also offensively, where you hit one group of guys and it puts you into another group where you then start using AoEs and blowing yourself up. So there's a lot of cool options there on how to make it work for the red class.
Can you tell us a little more about the class abilities, the base abilities, and how class abilities play into the character?
Sure. So the class abilities are again unique per character class, and even though it won't be in the demo, and we'll get into it later, there is class progression where abilities will improve and change a little bit over time as you progress. So those will be very cool. And then behind the scenes, again, we'll get into more of it later. Behind the scenes, there are generic stat boosts that happen per class. So that way, you know, a damage spell that's cast by the Geomancer may do more damage than a damage spell, the same damage spell cast by the Mind Mage.
Oh, can you tell us what's happening here?
So we're rolling up, and as you've been progressing through the region of Benalia, Josu Vest has been a thorn in your side the whole time. So we're playing the last portion of the last mission, and so you're kind of coming up on him right now, and he's sent some of his guards to get you. So you're clearing out the area before you can make your way down to a church that he has defiled for his nefarious purposes.
We actually have a question from Joshana, and that is, what systems is this game coming out for? PC version, I hope?
We are definitely going to be out on PC, and we have also announced Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
I just love the scenery here. The lighting, everything is so brilliant.
Yeah, smart to focus down those Cabal Knights. They can certainly do some work. He just showed you can two-stage your dash ability. It's not completely locked to where you're going to be going. You can put it wherever you want. If you want to optimize for getting your explosion exactly where it needs to be.
So can you tell us a little more about the aesthetics behind the Geomancer, like some of the choices you made based on the red mana?
Sure. Well, I have an entire team of amazing artists that made a lot of these choices, but they wanted to embody the color wheel for red. Ooh, we got an awesome Abyssal Fiend in here. Very cool part of the
They're so
enemy group.
impressive.
Yeah, very cool part of the enemy group for the Cabal. He has a limited power set, but whenever there are little guys out like you have there, he sacrifices them and is able to cast more dangerous abilities. So you kind of have this, well, I want to take care of the crunchies, these little adds before he's able to do any of his larger abilities. So it's pretty.
We have another question from Zendul. It is, will I be able to see all my cards that I have collected, kind of like Artifact did? I love to just look at my cards and read and listen to the lore.
You'll be able to have a library where you see all the cards you've collected and be able to peruse through them whenever you'd like, or when you're constructing your deck. So you'll be constructing your 12-spell deck while looking at your library. So yes, you will be able to see all your cards.
Traveler, seek the light of Sarah. Use her power to defeat Josu Vest.
Words1 asks, can I run a 3-color deck?
I'm not sure if we're talking about certain things, but whatever. At launch, we're supporting 2-color decks. Doesn't mean we'll never do 3-color decks, but at launch, we're supporting 2-color decks. And so he's prepping for the Josu Vest fight. You kind of learned a little bit about setting up these pillars of light to cleanse the area, and so he's got to go through and cleanse a little bit more, and then he'll have a little one-on-one fight with Josu Vest. You can see how close Jared's getting in the combat. A lot of AoEs, a lot of direct damage. Summons do a lot of direct damage, but he's got to get in there to mix it up, and it'll be a nice contrast from when you're doing this compared to the Mind Mix we'll be playing with.
Can you tell us more about the design for Josu Vest?
Yeah, he's based on his cards that came out in one of the recent sets, and we had a fair amount of back and forth with Wizards going over what he should look like and making sure that the effects that he had really made him feel like this lich, scary, ethereal. You know, he's kind of big in the stories, and so we wanted to make sure that he was represented well. And so we had some reasonable back and forth, but I think he turned out great. We've gone back and forth on his hammer a few times. I feel like it needs to be bigger, and so we feel like it's in a good spot. So now he's done enough to clear the statue that's been corrupted, and you'll have to tangle with the man himself.
The man.
Impressed by your persistence, you will have the honor of dying by my hand.
The effects on him are just amazing. I love them. So this is only one of 2 classes people get to play at PAX. Next we'll be showing you the Mind Mage, which is focused on blue mana. And it's a completely different play style.
Plays very differently, and the spells are really different. One of my favorite combos is blue-red with the Geomancer as the class, because you get a lot of movement abilities. You'll see one of them when we get to the blue deck, but it's definitely very cool.
For the card game, what are your favorite colors?
If we're playing sealed, I try to lean towards black and white. I love the kind of back and forth of having things that buff and then having the sacrifice mechanic. I feel like they play really well off of each other. So I try and shoot for black and white when I'm playing, but it doesn't always work out.
I tend to go blue-green or green-white. How long have you been playing Magic?
I played a lot when it first came out when I was younger, and
Yeah.
then over the last few years as I've been on this game, I've been playing a lot again.
And freed Caliban
reading a lot of the
from
books,
the Cabal's
so.
influence. Sarah truly.
Joshana asks, if we cannot make it to PAX East, will there be a closed or open beta soon? If so, how can we sign up? You can sign up on our website at playmagiclegends.com. Make sure to do that so you can be one of the first to get in and
He
play.
will be his army or his
Have we
base of
announced the date yet?
operations.
We have not announced
We
the
have
date
not
yet.
announced the date
Should
yet.
he return,
Coming soon, little train
I'm
bark symbol.
certain it will be for the last time.
TM.
Yeah.
And here you can see an example of what the chests will look like.
Yeah, and a mission, you collect your rewards. They all fly out of there. Though instead of seeing your rewards, you'll be seeing a thanks for playing on the show floor, and then you'll be able to find another way to play again.
Oh, here's a good question from Sayano, or if I'm saying that right, or Sayano. Are we going to see planeswalkers that represent colors like Ajani or Liliana, etc.?
That sounds likely. It sounds like something we'll be doing. So yes, we want to make sure we get planeswalkers from the lore into the game.
So now we're going to hop into the Mind Mage.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little more about the Mind Mage in general?
Yeah, so the Mind Mage, just like Blue in general, is very control focused. And so as Jared starts using his abilities, he's hovering in place, which is kind of neat as he moves around, doesn't walk, he's kind of hovering. And he fires these spheres at people, and then he just used his secondary ability. It does a little bit of damage that can take care of smaller units, smaller enemies. But for larger enemies, it has a chance to charm, and so they'll actually fight for you for a little while. So that feels very Blue. And then his utility ability is pretty neat. When you tap that, it creates a copy of yourself that draws aggro, and you're now invisible. You can attack; nothing can attack you back, and then it disappears. The upgraded version of that, the little fake illusion version of you, explodes after it's done doing its thing. So it's very cool.
And I love the primary attack. Barclay, our art director, just described how he wanted it to look like ribbons being thrown out of just like pure blue energy. And they really captured that.
Yeah, I think it looks great.
So can you tell us a little more about the blue deck?
Yeah, so this blue deck has a lot of control, which is essential for blue. It has some illusions. You're looking at one right now. You've got illusion creatures, but we also have some other illusions that we'll get to as well. But we also have things focusing on elements. So we're casting Water Elemental, very cool. So it has an enter the battlefield effect, similar to Flame Tonkavu. When it's spawned, it draws a bunch of enemies in. So if you have a spell that does a lot of direct damage, it's a good thing to cast right on top of it. Just a Tidal Wave. It's another one of my favorites. Knocks a bunch of enemies back, and then that's a slow and small damage field that was right there. The Avatar of Frost. So another enter the battlefield effect. You cast where that's going to go, or you can just tap it. Comes down like an ice comet, knocks a bunch of guys away, and then has a punch that does single target, and then has a stomp that does kind of an AoE freeze knockback. It's super cool. That's That's a great addition.
I just love watching him come down into a group of mobs, and it's just a boom.
It's great.
It's just
really
like,
awesome.
hello, everyone. So, Garland X asks, this was said earlier in a reveal, but just because you play the Mind Mage doesn't lock you into using blue, correct? As in, you could use Mind Mage with black-white cards?
Correct. So you'll be able to come up with a deck, and it may play better or worse with a different class based on their passive abilities, and based on the way that the class interacts. So that is correct. So he's able to scoot ahead, and his summons are working to keep up. He's got some cool spells in his hand right here. See, he just clicked in a button that targeted an enemy, and so all of your summons will now stop what they're doing and go and attack that enemy. So if you feel like there's an enemy that's worth pulling everyone away from, you can have the control to have them do that. Saw Icicle? Yeah, Icicle. It pierces through enemies, does a ton of damage. This is very cool. This is Phantasmagoria. It summons an illusion dragon, does a bunch of damage, weakens the foes that are inside of it. I think it has a little slow on it as well. It's a really cool ability.
And Grizzlyo has a great question. Can you explain what's going on with the mana bar?
Yeah, so your mana bar fills while you're in combat, and what you're looking at here is an early iteration of something we're calling mana surge. So throughout combat, you're slowly filling this mana surge that takes longer to fill than your normal mana bar. And when it fills all the way, you can pull the left trigger, and it will increase your mana generation exponentially. So you'll be in a spot where you can cast way more spells than usual for a short period of time. So you could choose to save that up for a critical moment, or you could feel like, this fight isn't going the way I want. I'm going to burn this so I can get my creatures back out and maybe cast a few sorceries. So that's what's happening right there.
So we've actually gotten a couple questions about the lore surrounding the game. The first question was, is there any chance we will see some of the older cards come into play? And somebody else asked, is it possible that we will see lore-driven battles such as the War of the Spark?
Yes to both. I mean, as a live game, we'll be making more cards and more spells forever, for as long as we're around, especially before launch. And we'll definitely be tying into specific stories as they're told and written. Wizards does a great job keeping us in the loop. We kind of they have an eye on what's coming a couple years down the pipe, and so do we. And so we're going to find ways to allow you guys to interact with their stories in a 3D space in a fully realized world.
So can you tell us more about the Academy Wizard?
So the Academy Wizard's very cool. You summon it, and he's just kind of a regular ranged guy. He's throwing his damage. But every time you cast a sorcery, it makes a copy. It makes an illusion copy that will do the same thing. So you can get up to 3 of him out there, all doing the same damage. So you can build your deck around optimizing for creatures that have abilities such as that. It's really cool.
And that's something very important to remember. Even though the Mind Mage is built around the ability to control and really command the battlefield, he's not neutered as far as damage goes. He can still do plenty.
Correct, and it's how you do damage is different, right? And so it's by controlling the battlefield. We actually have some spells that aren't in here that are way more controlling than what we're doing here. But there's a lot of options. It's pretty fantastic.
Joshana has another great question. Are there loot drops?
Yes, there are loot drops. I think we have them disabled for the show floor. But yes, there are loot drops. Currencies and a variety of different things.
So Grizzlyo has another great question. Can you stack summoned creatures?
You cannot stack summoned creatures. It's something that we're going back and forth on how we specifically want to make that work. But for the most part, you can have one copy of a creature that's in your deck out at a time. often there are reasons why you'd want to cast them again. Maybe you want their enter the battlefield effect to happen again, or like our buddy here, maybe you don't have any heals and the Avatar of Frost is at really low health, and so you're like, well, might as well recast him anyway and get that cool explosion when he lands onto the ground.
Fool, you've done nothing but earn my wrath.
Top Mo 3 vids.
Traveler, seek the
Get back to
light
work.
of Sarah. Defeat Josephus.
Top Mo 3 Vids does a lot of the visual effects.
Yes, he's the VFX lead over at Top Mo 3 vids.
Traveler, seek the
Get back to
light
work.
of Sarah. Defeat Josephus.
Top Mo 3 Vids does a lot of the visual effects.
Yes, he's the VFX lead over at Cryptic for Magic.
So Garland X asks, explain loot drops. All that was known was card shards will be dropped to upgrade your cards. Will there be equipment for our planeswalkers? This wasn't discussed anywhere yet.
I can only talk about some of our drops. We'll have more things that we'll be talking about over time, but card shards will drop, currencies will drop, and other things we're not talking about yet will drop in the game. All part of upgrading your spells and other things that we'll be talking about later.
And on that note, Kali Gold, I want you to know that we have seen your question. Are there any progression systems outside of spells, crafting, etc.? We're not talking about those things yet. We're just focusing on the PAX demo, but keep your eyes on our social channels by going to playmagiclegends.com. All of the links are at the bottom. If you're on Facebook, Twitter, Discord, the extension is Be a Magic Legend. So make sure to keep tuned. And make sure to sign up for the closed beta.
But I'll just say yes. The answer is yes. There are more progression systems than that. So stay tuned to find out about them.
Feeble goddess, she cannot save you now.
He's got the spell Sleep that looks fantastic. I love that spell. The way it looks and what it does is great.
It's
Bunch
my
of
favorite.
Sparkles and butterflies, and
That might be why it's my favorite.
yeah, it's really cool.
And one thing I love is that if you play both classes for this demo, it feels completely different.
Use
Yep.
the power of the
Yep.
Just as satisfying, but
the
completely
area
different.
And
Yeah.
weaken
Their Sleep
Josephus.
looking awesome.
I want to look that awesome when I'm asleep. I'm just drool.
Someone asked what plane this is taking place in. This is taking place in Benalia. This one that we've announced before. This is in the Caligo Morass region of Benalia,
By your persistence,
where the Cabal have kind of
you have the honor
pushed their forces in and making things not quite as bright white and sunny as it usually is over there.
Jashana asks, can you sorry, can you talk about multiplayer features? How many of my friends can play at the same time?
will not save.
In a single mission, it's 3 players in a single mission at the same time. The large reason for that is that each color kind of has strengths and weaknesses. And so if we allowed kind of, if you consider 5 to be traditional, you could cover every weakness with a strength. So by having it be 3, there's a decision that's made. Like, where are we going to be missing a strength? Where are we going to be weaker than we could be? So it works out pretty well. That being said, as you've seen in Star Trek Online and Neverwinter, our engine has the capability of running far more than that. So if we get feedback when we're live and people are playing, it's like, we want to have 5 or larger person groups, we could definitely make that happen.
So Sayano has another question. Can you give any details on the plane this takes place in currently that we're playing through?
Yeah, as I mentioned, we're in Benalia, in the Caligo Morass region, where Joseph Vess hails from.
ZE Films, who does amazing work.
Zeph!
Yeah.
How's it going, buddy?
Is it Zeph?
I don't know. We call him Zeph internally.
Zeph? Oh, well, asked if there will be a demo record function, asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure if there'll be a demo record. I think there is. I think there will be. I think we've been using it for some of our trailer work.
Sarah
So
truly shines her light on us today.
yeah.
I can once again take my post as protector of this land. I will not lose it again. The dark magic that animated him may yet return him to this world.
And that concludes the second run through.
Yeah.
or his base of
Very
operations.
cool. Very different.
Should he return?
I've been a big fan of the Mind Mage.
For
The
the last
Geomancer
time.
was one of our early classes, and it was one of my favorites. And then once we made the Mind Mage and got a lot of the spells kind of worked out and into the game, it's definitely it's kind of creeping up there, becoming one of my favorites.
I think my mage is actually my favorite.
It's a good class.
It's
That's
a really good class.
Yeah.
And I do see a few questions about character customization. What we can confirm is that characters will not be gender locked. Outside of that, more will be talked about in the future.
Yep.
Play through again, or we can just end? It's up to you guys.
You want to play through one more time? Let's play through one more time.
Sure.
Geomancer.
All right. Well, we've kind of talked these through two times, so we can just kind of take more questions as we're
Yeah.
rolling through the Geomancer spells.
I love Elemental Shatter. Can you tell us about the design decisions behind Elemental Shatter?
Sure. So we've wanted to have more, as we were experimenting with like numbers of creatures and things that we wanted to have in decks. Part of the IP that makes Magic different is a lot of planeswalkers, when you're playing the game, are summoning creatures to do their damage, right? You also have splashy spells and sorceries. But we wanted to make it feel like you were using creatures to do damage without just constantly giving you more creatures. So something like the Earth Elemental Shatter is you're summoning an Earth Elemental, only there for a little while, and then it explodes. Very similar to
Step into
Phantasmagoria, where an illusion dragon appears, does a ton of damage, and then disappears. And so we feel like that's something that differentiates Magic from other styles of games. And so that's something that we're diving into across a variety of colors and many other spells in the game.
Oh, Inkbear94 asks, was this gameplay recorded on a PC build or console? Actually, this is live play right now.
Live playing right now. Spinning around in a circle just for you.
This is a
Get it going.
PC build right
Yep,
now.
PC build right now. Someone's asking about the co-op limit at 3 set in stone. It's not set in stone. It'll probably be there for launch, but beyond launch, depending on community feedback and what we feel like making, like it could go up.
And desecrating sacred relics of Sarah. He must.
JackDead17 asks what the expected release date is.
It's PC this year and console next year, I believe we announced. That's all the details we can share right now.
ReaderGeek13 asks, is there going to be crossplay and is PC going to be WASD movement or mouse? Do we know?
For PC play, it's currently click to move, and we'll be showing off more of that later.
We will.
I do damage. Mentioned, with 5 schools of magic, you can have 2 schools in one deck, and only 3 players in a group, you can cover all 5. That's correct. However, the potency of your deck is modified by the class that you're playing, so it still leaves gaps in what you're able to cover. So you can't optimize everything completely with a 3-player group.
That's very true. And Joshana asks, will there be different flavors of the colors? For example, instead of elemental for red, will we have goblin builds or anything like that?
Yes. I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. Someone's going to jump through the door, and it's like, no.
Hello.
Yes. Coastal Townie talks about support classes or spells. There'll definitely be boosts and heals. I think you saw in the Game Informer, we've got things like Giant Growth and Nourish, spells that are definitely heals and buff based for all you support class players out there. You can build your decks that way. We even got a couple of support summons that are in there right
Majin VSP actually has an interesting question. Are we going with the typical Trinity style for multiplayer?
No, not particularly. You're going to have a lot of options. I find that when I build my decks, I like to kind of build with the Trinity in mind. Where if you look at this one, we have the Earth Elemental acting as your tank, and you've got your weaker but potent Emberlings, and your Flametongue Kavu kind of functioning as DPS. But because it's red, there are no heals. The best defense is a good offense for red. So we're not going to have a hard and fast Trinity, but it's something you could build towards if that's how you want to play.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of flexibility in the characters. We can't wait to tell you more about it.
My wrath.
J. Airy asks, is there any chance we can get a sneak peek at the deck builder?
Use her power to
No.
defeat Josuves.
Not now. Sorry.
Soon.
Ah, here's a good question. Cyano asks, you mentioned decks, but I see spells rotating in and out. Is there a set hotbar, or do they rotate out during cooldown?
So before you enter a map or at any time, you build a 12 spell deck, and then you select the deck that you want to have equipped, and then you come into the map, and you have 4 spells in your hand, and then when you cast one of those remaining spells is drawn at random into your hand. If you look at the UI right now, you could see the 5th spell, the one that's on deck, is down below on the left. So he's going to cast that, and then Earth Spike jumped into place, and so Molten Shell will be the next one up. So you can kind of see. So from your 12, you're seeing 4, and you're using them. You can hang on to them. It's like, oh, this is the combo I want to save, so I'm going to save this one until this other spell comes out, and I'll cast them both together.
I don't remember who asked it. I'm so sorry, I missed your name. But somebody asked, could you explain the little icon to the lower left of the action buttons? Sit down there.
Which one?
Right there.
This one?
Yeah.
So that's your next up. So that's your 5th spell. So whenever you cast a spell, the one that's there is going to fill that slot. So he just cast Elemental Shatter, and it brought up Emberlings, the one that was down below. So he's got Flametongue Kavu on deck. He cast Seismic Grasp, and Flametongue Kavu fills that slot.
Thanks for that feedback, Sayana. Sayana says, that's a dang good concept. Mimics drawing a card, not quite sure what you're going to get, but you know what the possible pull is.
Defeat me.
You're seeing something interesting here with Josuves. As we designed him, something that's kind of one of his weaknesses is a lot of creatures. So if you're rolling here with a creature-heavy deck, it's something that'll serve you well. And Jared got in a spot where he was pretty creature-light, and Josu started doing some work. So he was able to summon some guys and take care of the job.
That's a good question, Celestin. Will we have any way to check what each spell does on the go, or will we have to open the menu each time and check the deck?
When you're building your deck, you're likely to see what everything does. When you're actually playing, it's not going to show you a tooltip of what your spell does. If you want to see what your, let's say it's a cone or a cylinder attack, you could hold it down and you can see the 2-stage target where you can see the space it'll occupy when you cast it.
So I've seen the question from several people. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to us now that you've seen the demo a few times. Hello. A few people have asked whether or not there will be PvP.
Yes, there will be PvP. It's super fun also.
It is. But that's the extent of what we can tell you.
Yes, that's all we can talk about. But yes, there is PvP.
Jason CSU 2007 asked, how long until we ban Oko? Boom, you're an elk.
I think it's already done. I think it's already banned.
So,
someone asked if we've shown a lot of creatures and sorceries. Are there other artifacts, enchantments? There are other types of spells that we haven't really shown off yet, but the ones that we're showing now are good spells to show early. They're easy to pick up. They're easy to explain. But there's a broad library of spells. We'll be going through all of them over the time until launch.
So 3 people also asked, how many cards will there be in a set at launch? And how many how often are we planning on DLC expansions?
We aren't talking specifically about how often we're doing updates, but if you've seen Cryptic games before, it is very regular. There are a good number of larger updates throughout the year, as well as regular events and smaller updates that are happening all the time. So you should expect a living world that continues to grow with every update.
So to recap what we showed you, this is the PAX floor demo. You'll get to experience gameplay as both the Geomancer and the Mind Mage, which are the red class and the blue class, respectively. Now, mind you, this is just the demo. When the game goes live, you'll be able to customize your decks, change it up, and play the game however you want. But for this demo, they're locked to red and blue. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about regarding the demo?
Trying to think about what I'm allowed to talk about. No, it's super fun. It's a tight piece of content that you can play on the show floor. It gives you a taste of what it's like to play through a piece of content and try out two different classes. We feel like when we're showing people the game internally, once they play two classes, they really understand how the game is different than other games they've played before. So if you come and check it out, I recommend you playing it twice.
Definitely
Trying out
come
both
by
classes.
if you're at PAX. We will be there 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Thursday through Sunday, and we would love to meet all of you. Another great question that we just got from Grizzlyo is, will there be regular developer streams in the future? We are working our way up to regular streams as we reveal more details. So stay tuned. Make sure to sign up for the demo. Sign up for the beta, rather, at playmagiclegends.com. And at the bottom, make sure to follow us on all of our socials and join our Discord server, which is Be a Magic Legend. We would love to have you. We are always active in there, and we're happy to discuss the game with you. This is another good question before we go. How many of the same card can we use in a deck?
One copy of a card in a deck.
Okay, well, that concludes our stream. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
joining
coming.
me.
I look forward to seeing some of you at PAX, and I look forward to showing off more of the game. There's a lot more to show.
There's so much more we want to say. See you guys soon.